of the Apes starts off with a play on words and a quick written recap of all the other movies before. We follow a group of soldiers who clearly don't like apes based on the different sayings on their helmets. A group called Alpha Omega, they have some apes with them, even though they don't like apes. When I first saw this, I thought that this was Caesar's people, and they were now working with humans to take out another threat. But they're called donkeys, and I just thought that was an endearing term for apes who carry things. But no, it's actually a derogatory term for them. The apes that the soldiers are actually hunting are Caesar's people, but of course they're no match. Caesar's people win, and this guy Preacher is captured, along with one of the gorilla guys. Turns out the gorilla guy is a traitor. He used to be one of Koba's followers. And since they figured Caesar would probably punish them harshly for this, they decided to team up with the humans. The humans who hate them and respect them not. This guy, it's very confusing because he looks at Caesar as though he deeply respects him, almost like worship. Caesar's a legend among those parts, as said by their colonel, McCullough. After Caesar tries to make an excuse why the gorilla made the moves that he did, he says he's not afraid of Caesar. He said humans will destroy you, as if the humans will destroy him too.
Human. Everything.
What a kiss-asser. Winter, the white gorilla, is ordered to take that other gorilla away. Caesar shows mercy by sending back the men to tell the colonel the message. Leave us alone. Caesar is happy to see his older son, Blue Eyes, come back from his journey. Blue Eyes found a new place for them to live, so he starts to make plans with his father. Winter hears this, and they have to make the plan first, but Winter is freaking out because they can't wait that long because the soldiers are coming soon. But if they go into the desert, which is where their new home will be, they must make plans, or else they'll die there. When Blue Eyes tries to calm Winter down, Winter just loses it, and Caesar's like, sit your ass down, what you think you're doing? After Caesar is looking over the map of the desert and thinking, he caresses his sleeping wife and his younger son Cornelius. He then sees a green light shining on their faces. He reaches out and grabs a rope on the other side of the waterfall. With their home being behind this waterfall, it is very concerning that humans are here. Cornelius stays behind to protect his mom and sibling. Earlier that day, Winter had come back to tell Caesar that the traitorous gorilla had attacked him and gotten away. So it's a little bit suspicious that Winter's freaking out, and that night the humans now have found the main base, which nobody is supposed to know the location of. Beats one of the humans to death, trying to protect his mother. Unfortunately, he doesn't see that someone has their aim on him. Caesar goes back to his lair to find out that Woody Harrelson, who plays this villain, Colonel McCullough, is leaving. He looks visibly confused and looks over at a pile of bodies close to Caesar. To his horror, Caesar looks to ascertain what he's staring at. It is his wife and older son. The colonel obviously had mistaken his son for him and thought he'd killed Caesar.
That's so very, very sad.
Seeing his wife and oldest son lying there dead and gunned down, Caesar loses his mind. He gives chase to the colonel, but he is cut off from the wire. Caesar wants revenge. He wants to know where his younger son is. When everyone leaves to look for him, Cornelius comes out of his hiding spot. Caesar is relieved to see that his child has survived his only family. Poor Cornelius probably was there and saw when his older brother and mother had been gunned down. As a matter of fact, Blue Eyes probably told his little brother to hide. They all set off for their new home. Caesar tells Lake, a female chimpanzee that was actually his son's girlfriend, that she is considered a member of the family because she loved his son very much, and he makes her the ward over his younger son Cornelius. Caesar leaves his son in her care, and he goes off to find the colonel, but Maurice tells him that he can't leave. He's their leader. We can't leave without him. Caesar is blinded by his need for revenge and the pain he feels losing his family. However, his friends, Luca, Rocket, and Maurice, catch up to Caesar, and they say they're not leaving without him. When Caesar says he might not make it back, Maurice says that's why he's coming, to make sure that he does. The four friends track down an abandoned establishment. At least they thought it was. This guy is scared. When he tries to pull his weapon, he is shot to death by Caesar. When they go into the back room, they find a little girl that looks sick, and she's unable to speak. Maurice decides to take the girl against Caesar's wishes. He says he's not leaving her. After all, she'll die out here alone. The little girl hangs on to Maurice like a baby chimpanzee. And later that night, they find a soldier camp. And there, they confront Winter, the traitor. Traitor! Turns out, as we suspected, that Winter was the one responsible for the soldiers finding Caesar's base. Winter is completely honest with them and tells them everything. That the colonel is going to meet a whole bunch of soldiers at the border. Winter tries to petition Caesar and said that the donkey that they had caught, aka the traitorous gorilla, had threatened to kill him unless he gave up Caesar's base location. Caesar is beyond enraged and tells him that his son and his wife were killed. Winter obviously didn't mean for this to happen, but seriously, what did he think was going to happen? He also knows that those soldiers that are coming to meet the colonel on the border are going there to finish off the apes for good. Winter is killed so that he can be silenced when the soldiers start snooping around, and because Caesar thinks he deserves it, because he is responsible for his family dying. Caesar keeps seeing reoccurring visions of Koba, who tells him ape not kill ape. And that was always Caesar saying. Yet, he just killed one with his bare hands. Caesar and his friends and the little girl go to another area and they have to take cover from gunshots. It is revealed that these men were shot by their own men. One of them is still alive. Caesar notices that he's bleeding from the nose and he's unable to talk, just like the little girl. Caesar shows mercy and compassion. Caesar decides to shoot him, and the man nods that it's okay. He wants to be shot, or rather shot again. When all four of the friends go up for a better look to see where the soldiers had gone, don't know why they all have to be up there to look, the girl is left on the bottom with the horses. She doesn't see that someone is stealing one of the horses, a gun, and some other items, but Luca sees and gives a warning roar, which prompts the stealer to flee into a high-speed horse chase. This horse should have had its back broken when a freaking 500-pound adult male gorilla leapt onto it with all the force of gravity and his weight, and also when a 300-pound grown male chimp also jumped on the back of this horse. Both of them combined make up about 85% of the horse's body weight. This is animal cruelty. After they chase this thief, they find him in an abandoned edifice. He relinquishes the shotgun and the other stuff he stole, and is revealed to be another chimp. This chimp does not understand sign language, and he has no hair and looks as though he is older than all of them. He's a very fun and quirky character. It turns out he's another ape from a completely different region. He got smart too, and he learned to speak by listening to the humans.
Bad place. I find long time ago after zoo, I look for food, I find human zoo.
He mentions that he found this place with a whole bunch of sick humans. Then they were gunned down by other humans. Caesar confirms when asking him if they were soldiers. When Caesar demands that this new ape called Bad Ape, as what the humans used to call him, Bad Ape freaks out and tells him that he cannot. He doesn't want to go back, and that the little girl can keep the little trinket that she kept playing with. That night, Caesar mourns his family as he's looking at the little girl. He and Bad Ape have a heart-to-heart. Bad Ape said he had a child a long time ago, and asked Caesar if there's a chance his child could be there, even though he knows the child is not. Caesar says maybe. Bad Ape says, just for the unlikely chance, I'll take you. This after Caesar having told him that Caesar also recently lost his kid. The little girl, who was later called Nova, shows gentleness towards Luca as he shows gentleness towards her. Bit by bit, Caesar starts to warm up to the young human child. When they find the soldiers, they are ambushed by them, and Luca steps in the way to protect Caesar. Unfortunately, Luca is stabbed by the bayonet. As Luca lay dying, another gorilla biting the dust, Nova cries over him, and the gorilla smiles. Luca passes away, seeing a friendly, kind, loving face, as Nova gives him back the flower that he gave her. He dies in peace. Reeves tells Caesar this has to stop. He's becoming like Koba. But Rocket tells him that Luca would have died for nothing. Caesar says it was a bad idea for them to come along and angrily walks away. When Caesar goes into the enemy camp, to his horror, he sees his people strung up and dead. Unfortunately, the terrifying truth is that his people he left behind, including his son and Lake and all the others, were captured by the humans somehow. One of the crucified apes was still alive, barely. He relayed to Caesar that the humans claimed they would work all of them until they died. Unfortunately, when he asks where his little son is, his comrade dies. Caesar is attacked from behind by Red Donkey, the traitor's gorilla, and he meets the colonel. Caesar is thrown in with the other apes that look very angry with him. They're all probably thinking, if you hadn't left, this wouldn't have happened to us. Caesar's relieved to see that his son is still alive, at least for now. The soldiers all gather the next morning under the colonel to put the apes to work. Caesar meets Lake there, and she said that all of them haven't had food and water since they've been here.
So thirsty.
One of the apes messed up with their work, and he is whipped mercilessly. Seeing Caesar stand up for them once again, all the apes are invigorated, and they refuse to keep working. The colonel brings Caesar forward and whips him in front of everybody, but Caesar is defiant and not afraid of the colonel at all. He says his people need food and water, but the colonel kills the orangutan that Caesar was protecting to make an example.
That's messed up.
Caesar stands bravely as the colonel then threatens to kill him. Lake, not wanting Caesar to die, lifts a rock above her head to show them that they'll keep working. She encourages the others to keep working as well. Meanwhile, Caesar's friends have followed him and they are making a plan to save him and all the others. Caesar tries to talk sense into Red Donkey, telling Red that the humans don't care about him and he'll die too along with everybody else. Red says he saves himself. Caesar did sow a seed in Donkey's mind, a reminder that he is ape, not donkey. The colonel summons for Caesar and tells him that he didn't mean to kill his son. He was actually looking for Caesar, but if he had to do it, he would do it again. Because it turns out the colonel had to kill his own child. The simian flu had mutated and is now robbing people of their humanity, causing them to not be able to speak and to return to a primitive state. How ironic, since other apes, like chimpanzees, bonobos, and orangutans and such, were seen as very primitive with the inability to speak human language, are now the smart ones while humans are devolving. So the colonel did what he had to do, and led by example of sacrificing his only son so that the sickness wouldn't spread to everybody else. He killed anybody else who refused to do the same. The colonel tells Caesar to not be emotional because he killed his family in an act of horror.
Aren't you overreacting?
Meanwhile, Maurice, Bad Ape, Rocket, the girl are still making plans with the captured apes. Caesar must have gotten through to the colonel because the next morning they are given food and Lake is grateful. However, he gets none and he doesn't even get water.
So thirsty.
There are underground tunnels where the other humans that had gone to the north to complain on the colonel had escaped through. And it's these tunnels that Caesar's friends are using for their plan of escape and saving the rest of the apes. Nova goes into the camp while Caesar's still haunted by Koba. The colonel says if Caesar's still alive by the morning, he gets to work with everybody else. Nova quietly sneaks into the camp and she gives Caesar her teddy with her blood on it. The blood's not important. It might be just, that's not why she gave him the teddy, because there was blood on it. She's just getting it. Never mind. Anyway, Caesar's surprised to see her. She asks if he is thirsty. And I do know that to be the language for being thirsty, even though she's using 2 fingers. Nova gives him water, which he drinks greedily as she caresses his head.
So fucking thirsty.
The other apes call her over to give Caesar food. After seeing that the other apes are looking out for him, they give him the signal, apes together strong. They believe in him, that he will help them, and they'll all get out of here together. Nova is forced to hide when the soldiers come, and Rocket, looking on, knowing that they'll kill Nova if they see her, goes into the camp and is a distraction. After making the distraction, Nova is able to escape, but Rocket is captured and placed in the pen with the others where he chuckles to Caesar. The colonel is surprised the next morning to see Caesar still alive after being frozen to death. He has no idea he had help, but is quite suspicious when he sees the doll lying there. He asked him where this came from, and what is this? He asked the other soldier how it got in there, and they make it a point to show the drop of blood in the fabric. Blood being indicative of the virus spreading as shown in Rise Planet of the Apes at the end. Bad Ape meets Caesar's people, and Rocket introduces him to the others, who all tell him thank you for helping them. This is so sweet. Time is of the essence though, because earlier when Caesar was talking with the colonel, he guessed that the soldiers weren't meeting with the colonel. The soldiers that were coming were going to try and stop the colonel because he was responsible for killing his own men. The US Army, or what's left of them, had said that this variant of this mutated version of the virus, which is causing people to go primitive, can be treated. But the colonel strongly believed that they got into this mess with the apes in the first place because they were trying to tamper with nature, and yet they're still trying to do that. But at this point, what's left to lose? Knowing it's going to be a bloodbath, Caesar and his friend, Rocket, find a way to escape and free the other apes via the underground tunnel. Having done away with the guard, they're able to take his keys and free the baby apes. Caesar is happily reunited with his only son, who is so happy to see his father. Yet again, Caesar tells Rocket and his other friends he's going to stay behind and end the colonel. Caesar says that Maurice was right. He is like Koba, because he cannot escape the hatred that he has in his heart. Just then, as all the apes are fleeing the facility, the US Army comes in to confront the militia, who had used the apes to build this wall as a defense system and to mount their missiles. Creature, this traitorous human, found out that the apes have escaped, as if it's the only thing he cares about. When Caesar goes to kill the colonel, it is revealed that there is blood everywhere. He also sees the picture of his son in the blood and alcohol. The colonel is affected because he had touched that doll. He is now primitive like the other sick people.
That's what you get! That's what you get!
As he is struggling to speak, which he cannot, Caesar realizes that it's because of the doll that the little girl had brought in that caused him to be sick. He encourages Caesar to shoot him in the head and end his misery. Caesar wants to, but it wouldn't be satisfying ending him this way since he's so pitiful. It's not a fair fight. Caesar's like, no, that'd be mercy, even though I really want to kill you. Go ahead, kill yourself. Caesar puts down the gun so he can use it, being very trusting, thinking this guy won't shoot you, and the colonel ends his own life. While Red Donkey is helping the militia humans and the rest of Colonel's men fight off the US Army, Caesar is horrified to witness that all his friends are being gunned down after some of the soldiers saw them escaping, even though they're in the middle of a fight for their lives against the US Army. Caesar takes the grenade belt and goes to save his friends. The traitor Red Donkey, seeing all these apes get gunned down, children, females, he's realizing that he's on the wrong side. He's also invigorated when he sees Caesar having stayed back from everybody else, forgoing the need to save himself in order to save his people. The gorilla realizes how selfish he's been, and Caesar has his respect. Unfortunately, before Caesar can throw the grenade into the fuel tank, he is shot by an arrow. This has to be one of the most interesting twists, because the way they were leading up to it, I really thought this guy would have ended up helping Caesar. So I was surprised when he turned out to be the one to be Caesar's downfall. That was very surprising. It's almost like they were leading up to him befriending Caesar or something. Red, who had been watching this, is scolded to get the grenade launcher. And as Preacher is about to finish off Caesar, he is shot by none other than Red, who in his final moments of life has redeemed himself and dies not as a donkey, but as a proud warrior ape.
Aren't you proud of me?
Caesar throws the grenade into the flammable liquid and obliterates the base for the humans. Caesar escapes this, giving the rest of the apes time to flee. The rest of the US Army moves in. He's surprised by how many of them there are. They all cheer when they realize they have won, but something draws Caesar's attention that makes him completely ignore the army, something that he has never seen before. Something that would make him completely forget about the very real danger of an army of humans with weapons that hate him more than the militia did. Honestly, this is the funniest part of the movie for me. It's the way they're all cheering, and they all just comically just stop cheering and all go silent when they see him standing there. Like, can you imagine how scary this would be, seeing this? It's just the way they look. It's freaking hilarious, bro. So one of them picks up his gun when the others weren't even. I don't know why he's picking up his gun. And they finally see what Caesar sees. There's enough reason why this ape would not be afraid of their guns. A mighty avalanche that heads straight towards the region, triggered by all the noise and explosions. Everyone tries to flee the very angry mountain, and the army is quickly swallowed up as if they'd never been there. Caesar is able to escape by climbing up the trees and hanging on for dear life as the avalanche passes. Turns out all the apes had the same idea. They make their trek to their new home, to the desert, where they find the utopia that Blue Eyes spoke of. The little girl lives with them now, and she is happy. Caesar is dying, though, because of his wounds, and Maurice stays with him as he dies, and makes a promise to Caesar that his son would know who his father is and what he did for all of them. Seeing his son happy and dying with his best friend at his side, Caesar is at peace, and Morris cries loudly as Caesar passes away. God damn it. All the other apes start to realize that their leader and the legend is dead. Why am I crying? The end. This entire trilogy was so memorable that even when I was doing this review, I found myself watching over the movies right after I just finished them. Each movie feels better and more satisfying than the last, but the first one also feels like a classic that stands on its own. One of the best trilogies ever, not to mention one of the best uses of CGI and practical effects. It was hard to believe that these were CGI, and there were times where I wasn't sure what I was seeing. This is because all the apes seemed real, as if they were made up of a mix of people in costumes and real chimpanzees with their eyes and expressions of other humans added on. I'm intrigued in the creation of these movies since they appear to be so believable. It's so hard to imagine that they were produced so long ago. They're leagues ahead of what we get in modern movies, and that's saying something, especially when you consider that the modern movies cost significantly more. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ulterior, You Ask, We Answer.